Save the date, January 23rd, 2024. That's when New Hampshire's first in the nation presidential primary will be held. In Concord today, Secretary of State David Scanlon made the announcement and addressed recent pushback from the DNC.
We did not take the first in the nation primary from anyone, and we will vigorously defend it. The first in the nation status is now being challenged by the Democratic National Committee due to alleged concerns over the lack of racial diversity in the state. Their pundits have claimed that New Hampshire is too white and, by extension, too privileged.
Scanlon goes on to say no state is more American than any other state, and no other early primaries have been moved due to similar population statistics. In the Granite State, it is state law to hold a primary at least 7 days before any other state. So let's talk about it. Joining us now, political science professor at New England College in Henniker, New Hampshire, Dr. Nathan Schrader. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start with the message this sends to the Democratic Party, because this has been a fight, maybe a one-sided fight for several months, but this goes against their primary schedule.
Right. Well, it goes against their primary schedule, but I think Secretary Scanlon has really shown some courage here in upholding the rule of law here in the state of New Hampshire. That New Hampshire state law mandates that the New Hampshire primary is the first in the nation. And I think it's absurd that a political party organization, whether it would be the DNC or the RNC, but in this case, the DNC, that they would think that their own internal rules could trump the state law of the state of New Hampshire. That's an absurd claim to me, and I'm glad the secretary said what he did today.
So he was right, do you think, to push back on this being a diversity issue?
Oh, absolutely. The DNC and the RNC for years have been addressing the diversity question when it comes to the primary election calendar. So, for example, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, and Michigan for several election cycles now have been the first states to vote. And those are states that are racially diverse, economically diverse, and geographically diverse. And those states all vote in the early part of the cycle, usually in February, but this year for Iowa and New Hampshire will be in January. And I think the parties have addressed that question long ago. And this is one of those cases where if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Dr. Schrader, a new Emerson College poll last night put Nikki Haley in second place in your state, while Ron DeSantis falls further behind. Donald Trump, we know, is still way ahead. Is Nikki Haley a potential threat to the president, former president, at this point?
Well, look, you're right. Ron DeSantis has declined 10 points from the March poll to the November poll. Donald Trump has declined 9, and I think it was a 12-point gain for Ambassador Haley. I personally and professionally don't see her as a threat to Donald Trump. He's still 31 points ahead in New Hampshire, and he's up by even more when you look at some of the other states and the national tracking polls. I think what she's doing, though, as pointed out in the Emerson research, her numbers are being fueled by gains among older voters and those with graduate degrees. The problem is there's a ceiling that she's going to hit there, where there's only so many voters that she can peel off in those categories where it faces sort of the grassroots energy of the Donald Trump movement and the MAGA voters.
ABC News journalist Jonathan Karl said on The View yesterday, quote, "I think the Republican primary still has a ways to go, and I think Trump is a lot more volatile than people realize." What do you think about that?
I think there's a lot of wishful thinking in the Beltway, in the punditry, among a lot of people in the news media, and among a lot of sort of establishment RNC Republicans who have been on the outs in their own party since Donald Trump came around in 2015. And I really think that wishful thinking is guiding this notion that Nikki Haley is a contender anywhere really against Donald Trump, and wishful thinking that Donald Trump is a weak frontrunner.
Governor Sununu still hasn't endorsed anybody, although he's been on the stump with several candidates, Haley, Christie, DeSantis included. He says he'll endorse the person he thinks can best defeat Trump. Do you think that person is Haley? And does Sununu's endorsement matter?
Well, I think right now, if you look at the field, she is the strongest non-Trump candidate. However, her number, she's not strong enough, in my view, to be placed in like the first tier of candidates in the Republican race. Donald Trump has the first tier all to himself, and he will until any of them can get him down from like a 30-point lead, 40-point lead in national polls as much as 50. But as far as the governor's endorsement goes, I understand that he wants to keep Donald Trump from being the nominee, but I really don't believe that his endorsement is going to really carry a whole lot of weight in the primary here, because Republican voters generally agree with Donald Trump. They like Donald Trump, and I don't know if a Sununu endorsement would be enough to sway those voters away from Trump.
Dr. Nathan Schrader, again, appreciate your insight as always.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you very much.